Welcome back to another deep dive here on artificial intelligence, unorthodox lessons.
It's great to be diving in again.
We've got a really thought-provoking piece today, shared by one of our sources, an existential crisis of a veteran researcher in the age of generative AI.
Yeah, it really hits home, I think, for a lot of people in knowledge work.
Absolutely. And before we jump in, a huge thank you to our sponsor, Wave. They're a leading AI company with solutions for research, education, and, well, a whole lot more. Check them out.
Definitely. So this piece, it really tracks one researcher's um, journey, their whole experience with how research and development has changed, especially with these new generative AI tools.
Right. We're going to unpack that. The initial shock, that uh-oh moment, and then how they sort of came to terms with it.
And it shines a light on how tasks like literature reviews, even peer review, and software development are being totally transformed.
Yeah, tasks many of us probably thought were pretty safe, right? So our mission today is to really get to the core of this experience.
And figure out what it means, for anyone doing research, writing, coding, basically any kind of knowledge work today.
Okay, so let's set the scene. The before picture. This researcher, 15 years back, was a PhD candidate.
Right. Picture that. You're drowning in articles, scribbled notes everywhere, emails, bookmarks, just chaos.
Sounds painfully familiar to me, at least. It's that classic academic struggle.
And it's interesting. They mentioned how finding even like relatively simple tools back then felt like a lifesaver.
Yeah, like Mendeley, the citation manager.
Exactly. Mendeley for citations. And they mentioned something called Xbookmark for organizing links. Small things, but they made a real difference in feeling slightly more in control.
Give them a productivity boost, right? But even with those tools, think about the literature review.
Oh, yeah. The researcher points out it wasn't like an exaggeration to say it took 3 to 6 months.
3 to 6 months? That's a huge chunk of time.
Just dedicated to reading, sorting, trying to understand, summarize, maybe over 100 papers.
Just to get a solid footing on your topic, that sheer time commitment is something else.
And that bottleneck, it really slowed down the whole process of discovery back then.
And then after all that foundational work, you hit the peer review process.
Which, as the researcher describes, was often this long, drawn-out thing. Multiple rounds of feedback.
From mentors, advisors, the journal reviewers.
Yeah, all that back and forth. And the pressure to hit this acceptable quality mark.
It could be pretty demoralizing, I imagine, especially after investing so much time.
And then there was the possibility of getting rejected, maybe just because you picked the wrong journal, not the right fit.
Oof. Yeah. All that effort, potentially for nothing, at that specific outlet. It highlights the frustrations, definitely.
Which really sets the stage for this massive shift, the arrival of generative AI.
This is where the existential crisis kicks in for the researcher. They mention a specific tool, SCiNiTO, is that right?
SCiNiTO, yeah. An AI research assistant. And encountering that seems to have been the catalyst.
The moment everything changed.
It sounds like it. Their first reaction was almost denial, trying to dismiss it.
Like, oh, this is just a marginal improvement. It won't really change things for literature reviews.
Exactly. Bit of wishful thinking, maybe, but that didn't hold up for long.
No, because then came the shocker. The realization that AI could potentially do that literature review in a minute.
Oh, man. Compared to 3 to 6 months?
Yeah.
It's hard to even wrap your head around that kind of compression.
It really is mind-boggling. It fundamentally changes the game for research.
And it's not just the speed, right? These tools can apparently also help with the peer review part.
How so?
Well, potentially streamlining the feedback, maybe summarizing reviewer comments, suggesting revisions, reducing that lengthy back and forth we talked about.
Okay, that could make a huge difference. Less waiting, more focused revision.
And then there's the journal selection piece, AI helping you find the best fit journal for your paper.
Ah, so potentially avoiding those wrong fit rejections. That saves a ton of time and heartache.
Right. It tackles some of those classic academic publishing hurdles. It could really speed up how knowledge gets shared.
Now, what I found really interesting is that this isn't just hitting academia. The researcher moved into engineering.
Yeah, after the PhD.
Yeah.
Started doing a lot of coding software development.
And these AI tools are shaking things up there, too. It's not just one field.
Absolutely. They mentioned using tools like Cursor IDE, an AI-powered coding environment.
And it's changing their workflow.
Massively, it sounds like. Less time spent digging through Stack Overflow for bug fixes, for instance.
Anyone who codes knows how much time that can save. Hours, sometimes days.
Totally. And less time writing boilerplate tests. AI can generate a lot of that now.
Okay, so efficiency gains there, too. But what about building things?
This was striking. They talk about building websites now without needing deep expertise in, say, React or HTML or CSS.
Wow. So you don't need to be a front-end guru anymore to build something functional.
Apparently not to the same extent. The AI assists heavily. Compare that to the time investment it used to take to learn those frameworks.
Yeah, that's a dramatic shift. It lowers the barrier to entry significantly.
Makes it easier for more people to build stuff online, innovate faster.
But it's not purely about speed or replacing skills, is it? The researcher also talks about some super cool new capabilities.
Right, things that just weren't really possible before, like semantic search.
Going beyond just keywords.
Exactly. The AI understands the meaning behind your query, searching vast databases for conceptually related information, not just matching words.
Okay, that sounds powerful. Much more insightful results.
Potentially, yeah. And getting quick updates on research topics. Instead of manually searching constantly, you could ask the AI for the latest developments.
Hours instead of days or weeks to stay current. That's huge in fast-moving fields.
And practical stuff, too, like writing latex code for papers or instantly reformatting a paper for different journal guidelines.
Oh man, those formatting tasks are so tedious. Automating that, yes please.
So the bigger picture here is freeing up human time, right? Less drudgery, more time for.
For the actual thinking, creativity, problem solving.
Exactly. And maybe even, having a bit more personal life back.
That's the dream. And the researcher mentions personal benefits too, like coding in unfamiliar languages more easily.
Building websites without getting bogged down, optimizing Python code, generating tests, tangible stuff.
It really demonstrates the versatility, but they also acknowledge it's happening whether we like it or not.
Yeah, that sense of inevitability. Technological evolution doesn't really wait for us to get comfortable.
Which brings us to the concerns, the future outlook.
The researcher feels they're in a relatively fortunate spot, being an AI architect, already part of this world.
They have a plan to adapt, presumably?
Right. But they express real concern for others, people who might find this shift much harder to manage.
People potentially facing their own existential moments about their careers, but without that same support system or technical background.
Yeah, it's an empathetic perspective. It reminds us there's a human cost, or at least a human adjustment period, to all this rapid change.
And they even put out an invitation like, if you're struggling with this, reach out.
Which is a nice touch, acknowledging the shared challenge.
So, wrapping this up, what are the big takeaways here? We've seen this really dramatic shift. Generative AI is changing research development, coding.
Tasks that took months now might take moments. That frees up incredible potential for deeper thinking, for innovation.
Huge opportunities, definitely. But it also forces us to confront how we adapt, how we learn, how careers might change.
In this personal story, it really underscores that it's not just about efficiency. It's also about the emotional side, the intellectual adjustment needed.
Yeah, how do we embrace these tools effectively? And how do we support people who find this transition difficult?
Big questions. It's something we all need to be thinking about in this new era of AI partnership.
We really hope this deep dive gave you some valuable perspective on that evolving relationship between us and AI in knowledge work.
Hopefully some food for thought.
And if you found this discussion interesting and want to keep exploring these kinds of topics in AI, definitely hit that follow button for Artificial Intelligence, Unorthodox Lessons, wherever you get your podcasts.
Don't miss our next deep dive.